Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about gardening, botanical history, and literature. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and today is, May 21st, and there are just 30 days until the first day of summer. Today we celebrate an English writer who loved gardens and created a one-of-a-kind grotto as a clever way to connect his home and garden. We'll also learn about a writer who created a space that he called Dowhouse Garden, and we'll hear an excerpt about the haves and the have-nots when it comes to gardens. We grow that garden library today with a garden book about philosophy inspired by the garden. And then we'll wrap things up with the story of a writer who loved yellow roses but was not complimentary when it came to the poinsettia. But first, here's today's curated news. Oh, today's curated news makes me smile because it's all about a garden tour, a small, lush retreat with secluded seating areas. This is a post that was shared over on House, and it was written by Sarah Allcroft. Now, in this piece, there is a garden that was designed by a garden designer named Joanne Bernstein. And there's this couple that hires her. Now, this couple had seen her work in a book, and one of the reasons that they decided to hire her is that she had collaborated with Piet Oudolf, the fantastic Dutch garden designer. And Joanne had learned from those collaborations, and she had incorporated some of those ideas into her own designs. Joanne commented that the owners wanted a garden that was filled with plants. They wanted an immersive experience, and the man in particular loved tending to the garden. He loved looking after the garden. And so when she created the garden, she kept this fact in the back of her mind. Now, of course, like many wonderful articles that are featured on House, this article incorporates a great before and after. You get to see the garden, how it was initially, what Joanne had to work with, what the couple liked and didn't like about their old garden, and then what she did, what she created, and the result is incredible. The other thing that I really appreciate about this article is that we understand Joanne's process here. She shares with us how she talked to this couple and how she was able to get out of them what they were looking for. Joanne recalled, "The first thing I said was, 'Do you still use this building?'" Because she's talking about a little garden shed that I think is actually kind of cute. But Joanne wanted to remove it. She thought it would be transformative to remove it because they would gain so much more space. The other thing that Joanne noticed that I maybe would not have, and maybe you would not have either, was that part of the garden where the shed was occupying the sunniest spot in the garden. Isn't that interesting? So now, knowing this, when you think about your own garden and you think about potentially doing a redesign, consider your sunniest spots, your shadiest spots, and add that in as a consideration for where you're going to place things in your garden. You know, the other thing that I think is really interesting about this garden is that Joanne makes a pretty insightful statement when she says, if you divide a small garden like this, all you're doing is emphasizing the smallness. Instead, if you make it a uniform whole, it feels so much bigger. So don't take a small garden space and chop it into a bunch of tiny little rooms because it's going to feel really small and really cramped. And so when she was working with these clients in particular, she says it never occurred to them that they could get rid of the building or the lawn. And once they did that, they had so much more to work with when they were creating this amazing garden, which is really one large outdoor living space that is surrounded by lushness and green and plants and color, and it's absolutely glorious. And the other thing that is absolutely fantastic about this space is that there is so much garden that's in and around this wonderful living area. There's an outdoor dining area that has a path that leads to the house. And the back of the house is stunning. You can see these floor-to-ceiling windows. And what do you see when you look through them? This fire engine red bench that is on the back end of the kitchen, and it's right there by the table. And so you've got the kitchen being connected to this outdoor dining area by a path, a winding, curvy path that is flanked on either side by an incredible garden. And then it opens up into this beautiful outdoor dining space. Oh, it is so gorgeous. I'm telling you, when you see this picture after scrolling down, your jaw is going to drop. Mine did. I was totally blown away by it. It's just amazing. And Joanne does a great job of mentioning the plants that she used. So if you're looking at this, if you're looking at the pictures and you're seeing something in the foreground or the background and you want to know specifically what she's using, you can absolutely follow up and see if that plant will grow in your area. Why not copy from a master, take it and make it your own in your own garden design? All right, I could go on and on about this post, but we have a very full show, so I'm going to end this right here and just say that if you would like to follow up with this particular post and read it for yourself, all you need to do is search for the word retreat, and this post by Sarah Allcroft over at House will pop right up in the Facebook group for the show. Now, if you're not in the Facebook group and you'd like to join, I hope that you do. All you need to do is search for the words Daily Gardener Community in Facebook, where you'd search for a friend and then request to join. You'll get a handful of little questions about, like, how did you hear about the podcast, and what are your favorite show segments, and what can I do to make the show better? And then as soon as you share your answers with me, it's pretty easy. I'll admit you into the group, and then you can check out all of the articles that I curate for you guys Monday through Friday. They'll all be there for you. And plus, I also hope that you get a chance to share your garden with the group and with me, because I love seeing pictures of your garden. And of course, as I'm now working with my student gardeners, I'm getting about 1,200 pictures of my garden every single week. It's probably the biggest gift that I give myself by working with these student gardeners. And so it's fantastic. And I love sharing pictures of my garden with you guys in the Facebook group. So definitely do the same. We can learn from each other and be inspired by each other as well. And now, before I forget, I want to take a second and welcome some of the new members that we've had join our Facebook group in the last month. And I apologize that I haven't gotten to this sooner, but I have been so busy getting set up with the student gardeners and keeping the show going, and also beginning to write a book about botanical history. So here we go. Let me welcome to our Facebook group Maya Hall, Juanita Wood Arbus, Ann Wyden, Dove Manika, Beverly Young, Jennifer Dennis, Mary Bridwell, Stacy Bowdrick, Amanda Blackburn, Pam Davis, Kim Bishop, Nicole McAmis, Kathy Price, Carol Williams, Claudia Hahn, Savannah Nicole Johnson, Wendy Richards. Wendy used to be one of my nannies, and now here she is, married and joining the Facebook group. So welcome, Wendy. It's great to see you here. Edna Farrow, Kimberly Haroof, Chrissy Lynn, Madura Gore Modoc. Madura is one of my neighbors, so welcome, Madura. Rhonda Mueller-Patrick, Janine Beach Thomas, Sarah Adkins, Suzanne Naduk, and Kathy Campbell. Welcome, you guys. And I promise I will get through this entire list, because I've only gotten through a fraction of the people who have joined the group. And I want to make sure that I welcome everyone by name. So I will keep doing that next week, and I promise to get caught up. In any case, I hope that you consider joining our group. It's a great place to share our passion for gardens and learn from each other and celebrate some of the things that I talk about on the show Monday through Friday. All right, it's time for today's botanical history. Here's botanical history for May 21st. Today is the birthday of the British poet, critic, gardener, and satirist Alexander Pope, who was born on this day, May 21st, in 1688. Known for his poetry and writing, Alexander Pope is less remembered for his love of gardens. Yet Alexander was a trailblazer in terms of garden design and originality. He designed the impressive Palladian Bridge in Bath, and along with the great Capability Brown, created the Prior Park Landscape Garden. Alexander once famously said, "All gardening is landscape painting." Inspired by the gardens of ancient Rome, Alexander's garden featured both a vineyard and a kitchen garden. But the most memorable feature of Alexander's property was his grotto. The grotto came about because a road separated Alexander's home and garden. And so, to connect the two together, Alexander cleverly dug a tunnel under the road. The tunnel created private access to the garden and inadvertently became a special place all its own. Alexander's grotto was a masterpiece of mirrors, candles, shells, minerals, and fossils, all of which he carefully applied to the walls of his tunnel, which he called the grotto. Alexander described the thrill of finishing the grotto in a letter to his friend Edward Blount in 1725. He wrote, "I have happily finished the subterraneous way and grotto. I then found a spring of the clearest water, which falls in a perpetual rill that echoes through the cavern day and night. When you shut the doors of this grotto, it becomes a camera obscura. On the walls are the objects of the river, hills, woods, and boats, forming a moving picture. And when you light it up, it affords you a very different scene. It is finished with shells, interspersed with pieces of looking glass and angular forms. And when a lamp is hung in the middle, 1,000 pointed rays glitter and are reflected all over the place." Now, over time, Alexander's home and grotto became a tourist destination. His visitors were stunned by the marvelous grotto that connected the villa and the garden. They had never seen anything like it. Alexander himself knew the place was special, and he once wrote, "Were it to have nymphs as well, it would be complete in everything." Now, after Alexander died, the new owners of his property were so annoyed by the attention that they destroyed both the garden and the villa. Today, plans are underway to restore the grotto to its former glory, and I hope they get it done. And it was on this day, May 21st, in 1922, that the Pulitzer Prize was awarded to Eugene O'Neill for his play, Anna Christie. Remembered as one of America's greatest playwrights, most people are unaware that Eugene O'Neill was also a gardener. After becoming a Nobel laureate in literature, Eugene used his Nobel Prize money to buy over 100 acres in the San Ramon Valley. There, Eugene built his hacienda-style Dow home and garden in 1937. Both the home and the garden were influenced by Taoism, a Chinese philosophy that focuses on living in harmony with the Tao or the Way. And the entire property was designed to promote harmony and deter bad spirits. Dow House Garden features paths with sharp turns and walls that are blank. It's now a National Historic Site. Today, the National Park Service is working to restore the home built by the father of American theater. Visitors often comment on the peaceful nature of the site. Now, fortunately, the O'Neill family garden designs were well chronicled. Eugene's wife, Carlotta, designed the landscape, and she wrote about the gardens in her diaries. Carlotta especially loved white and pink blooming flowers. And after raccoons kept killing their koi, Carlotta turned the pond into a flower bed. Incredibly, there was just one other owner of the property after the O'Neills left in 1944, before it was acquired by the National Park Service. But during the 7 years that the O'Neills lived in harmony, Eugene created some of his most famous plays there, such as Long Day's Journey into Night and A Moon for the Misbegotten, among other works that made him an American literary icon. In the 1980s, the intimate courtyard garden was restored with cuttings from the original Chinaberry tree, along with magnolia, walnut, and cherry trees. There are pots of geraniums and garden beds filled with bird of paradise, azalea, and star jasmine, which was Eugene's favorite plant. The orchards and idyllic gardens that are around the house are beautifully sited on a hilltop over the San Ramon Valley, and they offer impressive views of the valley and Mount Diablo. The property is as spectacular today as it was when the O'Neills lived there, calling to mind a quote from A Moon for the Misbegotten, where Eugene wrote, "There is no present or future, only the past, happening over and over again, now." Today, the Eugene O'Neill Foundation hosts an O'Neill Festival in the barn on the property every September. The annual play is professionally acted and produced. You can bring a picnic dinner and eat on the grounds. It's time for today's Unearthed Words. Today's Unearthed Words come to us from the American author, women's rights advocate, and suffragist from Bowling Green, Kentucky, Eliza Calvert Hall, who wrote Aunt Jane of Kentucky. Each of us has his own way of classifying humanity. To me, as a child, men and women fell naturally into two great divisions: those who had gardens and those who had only houses. Brick walls and pavements hemmed me in and robbed me of one of my birthrights. And to the fancy of childhood, a garden was a paradise. And the people who had gardens were happy Adams and Eves, walking in a golden mist of sunshine and showers, with green leaves and blue skies overhead, and blossoms springing at their feet, while those others, dispossessed of life's springs, summers, and autumns, appeared darkly entombed in shops and parlors, where the year might as well have been a perpetual winter. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Philosophy in the Garden by Damon Young. This book came out in 2020, and I love how the publisher introduces this book. They write, "Why did Marcel Proust have a bonsai near his bed? What was Jane Austen doing coveting an apricot? And how was Friedrich Nietzsche inspired by his thought tree?" Well, in Philosophy in the Garden, Damon answers these questions, and he explores one of literature's most intimate relationships, the relationship between authors and their gardens. Now, for some writers, the garden is a retreat, and for others, it's a place to relax and get away from the world. But for all of the writers that are featured in Damon's book, the garden was a muse, and it offered each of these writers new ideas for their work. Now, as someone who features a garden book every single day on the show and loves to feature garden writers who found their inspiration in the garden, this book is a personal favorite of mine. This book is 208 pages of authors and their gardens, and the philosophies that were inspired by that relationship. You can get a copy of Philosophy in the Garden by Damon Young and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $8. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day, May 21st, in 1955, that Truman Capote's first musical, House of Flowers, closes at the Alvin Theater in New York City after 165 performances. House of Flowers has nothing to do with flowers. The plot centers on an evil brothel owner named Madame Fleur and her attempts to murder the fiancé of her star girl, Ottilie. Madame Fleur has her men kidnap the young man, seal him in a barrel, and toss him into the ocean. And here's a fun fact about Truman's House of Flowers. It was the first theatrical production outside of Trinidad and Tobago to use the instrument known as the steel pan. Today, most of us remember that Truman Capote wrote Breakfast at Tiffany's, but he also wrote the introduction to his friend C.Z. Guest's garden book called First Garden, an illustrated garden primer. C.Z. Guest, born Lucy Douglas Cochran, was an American fashion icon and garden columnist. She authored 3 garden books and 3 garden planners, and in 1990, she came out with her own line of grow organic fertilizer, insect repellent, garden tools, scented candles, and soap, and all of them were sold at Bergdorf Goodman and Neiman Marcus. Writing about CZ, Truman affectionately wrote, "There, with her baskets and spades and clippers, and wearing her funny boyish shoes, and with her sunborn sweat soaking her eyes, she is a part of the sky and the earth. Possibly a not too significant part, but a part." Truman Capote is remembered for this famous garden saying, "In my garden, after a rainfall, you can faintly, yes, hear the breaking of new blooms." In 1957, for the spring-summer edition of the Paris Review, Truman Capote wrote, "I will not tolerate the presence of yellow roses," which is sad because they're my favorite flower. Finally, Truman Capote could be funny. In his play Truman, the main character throws away a Christmas gift of a poinsettia, dismissing it out of hand by saying, "Poinsettias are the Robert Goulet of botany. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Maple Grove and Wyoming, Minnesota. If you want to read today's show notes, just head on over to thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. And don't forget that you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. Last but not least, you can always get in touch by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you on Monday.